The skeletal system. The skeletal system. The skeletal system. The skeletal system. Introduction. The skeleton is the bony framework of the body. Bones are main organs of support and locomotion. Skeletal system. A. Structure of bones. A thin membrane called periosteum, which is rich in blood vessels and supplies the blood to bone, covers each bone. In some places the cells are loosely arranged and at other places it is very dense like marble. The loosely arranged bone is called spongy cancellous bone, and densely arranged bone is called compact bone. Some bones are hollow from inside, and this canal is called medullary canal. B. Bone marrow. Bone marrow is of two distinct types. 1. Red bone marrow. Its function is formation of blood cells. 2. Yellow bone marrow. Yellow bone marrow acts as a fat reservoir. 2. Classification of bones. Bones of the body can be classified according to their shapes in the following 5 types. A. Long bones. These bones are long and tubular. They are confined to limbs. Each bone has got 2 ends and a shaft. The shaft consists of a hollow canal called medullary canal, e.g., bones of the upper limb, lower limb. B. Short bones. These bones are cubical, i.e. length and breadth is more or less equal, e.g. bones of wrist, carpal bones, and ankle tarsal bones. D. Flat bones are flat like plates. D. Irregular bones, irregular or mixed shape, e.g. vertebra, hip bone. E. Sesamoid bones. They are dots of muscles around the joint. Classification of bones. Skeletal system. Lateral and frontal view. 3 functions of bone. A. Bones from the rigid framework of the body. B. Bones help in transmitting the weight of the body to the ground. Key bones protect important organs of the body like brain, heart, etc. Injuries. D. Bones give attachment to muscles. A. Long bones. These bones are long and tubular. They are confined to limbs. Each bone has got 2 ends and a shaft. The shaft consists of a hollow canal called medullary canal, e.g., bones of the upper limb, lower limb. G. It is also the storehouse of minerals, especially calcium phosphate. 4. Description of bones. Anatomical terms. A. Process. Any marked prominence over a bone is called process. B. Condyle. A round process is called condyle. C. Trochanter. A large process is called trochanter. D. Tuberosity. Small process is called tuberosity. E. Foramen. Any hole in a bone is called foramen. F. Fossa. A depression in a bone is called fossa. The skull. 5. Bones of the skull. The skull rests on the upper end of vertebral column. The bones of the skull fall into 2 groups. These are the bones of the cranium and the bones of the face. 6. The bones of the cranium. There are 8 flat bone, which are joined together to enclose the cranial cavity. Of these 8 bone of cranium, only 2 bone parietal and temporal are paired. These bone are as follows.
Frontal bone. There is 1 frontal bone, which forms the forehead. The coronal suture joins the frontal and parietal bone. Parietal bones. There are 2 parietal bone. Parietal bones. There are 2 parietal bone and the form the size and roof of the skull.
C. Temporal bones. These bone lie 1 on each side of the head and form immovable joints with the parietal, occipital, and zygomatic bones. The temporal bone articulates with the mandible at the temporomandibular joints, the only movable joint. D. Occipital bone. 1 in number and forms the posterior part of the head and the part of the base of the skull. E. Sphenoid bone. F. Ethmoid. 7. Bones of the face. These are 12 small bones that form the face. The names of these bones are as follows. A. Nasal bone. 2 in number and form the greater part of the lateral and superior surfaces of the bridge of a nose. B. Zygomatic bones. 2 in number and form the cheeks and part of the lateral walls and the floor of the orbital cavities. Vomer. The vomer is a thin flat bone, which extends upwards from middle of the hard palate to from the main part of nasal. D. Palatine bones. These are 2 L-shaped bones. It forms the posterior part of the hard palate and part of the nasal cavities. E. Maxilla or upper jawbone. This originates as two bones, but the fusion takes place before birth. The maxilla forms the upper jaw, the anterior part of the roof of the mouth, the lateral walls of the nasal cavities. Fe. Mandible. This is the only movable bone of the skull. G. Lacrimal bones. Two small bones which are posterior and lateral to the nasal bones and form part of the medial walls of the orbital cavities. Each bone is pierced by a foramen for passage of nasolacrimal duct. H. Inferior conchae. 2 in number, each concha forms part of the lateral wall of the nasal cavity and projects into it, below the middle conchae. The superior and middle conchae are parts of the ethmoid bone. The conchae increases the surface area. Functions of the skull. A. The cranium protects the delicate tissues of the brain. B. The bony eye sockets provides eye with protection against injury, and gives attachment to the muscles that move the eye. C. The temporal bone protects the delicate structures of the ear. D. The bones of the face form the posterior part of the nasal cavities. They keep the air passages open, facilitating breathing. E. The maxilla and the mandible provide alveolar ridges in which the teeth are embedded. F. The mandible is the only movable bone of the skull, and chewing food is the result of the coordinated activity of certain muscles of the face. Bones of the skull. Human skull lateral view. Human skull superior view. Human skull inferior view.
Thank you.